Oops. That's the photos. Thank you very much. Okay. Everyone was missing Rosie. She hasn't been on for a long time. This week, I'm so lucky to have Rosie with me. Okay, here we go. All right, this week is Rosie's birthday. I'm very excited that Rosie could join our story today. Tonight, it's customary to announce in synagogue after davening, Yaakov holach darkai. Yaakov went on his journey. And the reason for that is because after all of the Tishrei season, with all the holidays, the goal of Hashem sending our soul to the world is not just to experience holidays, but it's to bring down all the holy experiences we had all this time and to bring it into the mundane. And on Motzei Shabbos, it's customary for people to sing a song, Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Don't be afraid, Yaakov. Don't be afraid to go into the mundane. Don't be afraid of what the chassidus calls the great waters, referring to the worries about financial things and physical things. Don't be worried because, as we were discussing earlier today, God is with each of us in every place, in every time, and whatever we're doing. And therefore, the Torah tells us, Al Tira, don't be afraid. You may be going on your own journey. You're not going to do a specific mitzvah. You're not going to shake an esrog and do lulav. You're going to do mundane personal things. But the Torah says, Al Tira, don't be afraid. Why shouldn't you be afraid? Because you're going with God. So on that note, I wanted to share with you a story which has personal meaning to me because of my experiences as a chaplain in the federal prisons. I can identify with the sentiments that the author shares about her imprisonment. This is a story that was printed in the Ami magazine for Sukkot, and the author, of course, doesn't want to identify herself. So the name that she uses is a not a real name, Avishag Solomon. This is her story and how she contended with a really hard situation, yet she was able to keep her head above water. And in my experience visiting inmates, Jewish inmates in prison, I found that there are two different kinds of ways that people react to this experience. So one is that they get older and they get immediately after going into prison, they ask themselves, what am I doing here? And they blame and they feel like a victim. And others, impossibly, they have this sense of Hashem has sent me here, I'm here for a reason, and they thrive in this very, very, very difficult situation and without any liberties that we're all used to. And somehow this neshama, this soul consciousness, be able to feel how God is with them in these tribulations. So here's a story. This woman, Avishag Solomon, was living in Miami in 2001. She was 22 years old. And she meets her friend Brenda. And Brenda says that this company that you used to work for, 72 employees in this company were arrested. Farber, it's not a real name. All the names and companies are changed, but the Farber company has 72 employees that were arrested by an FBI raid, and your name was also on the list of the employees as the vice president. They're probably going to come for you too. She's like, I'm not the vice president. I was just an employee, and I haven't worked there for over a year. There's no way they're going to possibly want to arrest me. It's impossible. She goes to the bank and she tries to take out money from the ATM machine. And when she goes to the ATM machine, they say, I'm sorry, you can't take out funds. She goes to a teller, and the teller says to her, sorry, the U.S. Attorney's Office has placed a lien on your account. You can't take any money out of your account. So she calls up the U.S. Attorney's office and she's like, "What's going on?" And they tell her that you are you were part of the Farber company, and you are therefore going to be you're accused together with everyone else in this company, in a senior position, with the fraud and the reportings of their earnings, their taxes. You as a senior vice president, you're going to be incriminated as well. She says, "But I'm not the vice president. It's all a mistake. Can I come over and clear this up?" So the man who answered the phone says, "Yes, come to our office and we'll discuss it." She comes to the office and they speak to her for 2.5 hours. And somehow every sentence she says, she suddenly felt like it was manipulated and changed and it was something else. And basically the one who interrogated her sums it all up and says, "You are listed as a vice president of this company. This company has committed this crime, and therefore you're under arrest." And they say this very friendly, very coolly, and then they place the handcuffs on her, and they lead her to prison. And she describes the pain that she had in her arms, in her hands, and when she left this interrogation, she saw her friend Brenda. She asked to come with her, and they told her, "You can't even take your what's it called, Rosie? A ponytail holder. Can't take anything with you." Why not? Because anything can be used as a weapon. And so she sees Brenda and she says, "Brenda, please go tell my mother some kind of excuse of why I'm here, because I'm sure I'm going to clear this up in a couple of days. I don't want my parents to hear that I'm in prison. They'll be, grief-stricken. Just make up some kind of pretext of where I am so that they won't worry about me. Here's my phone, here's all my things, and tell them some kind of reason of why I am here." Now, this Avishag had been connected with the Chabad house from Miami, Rabbi Korf's Chabad Center, and she had made significant steps in her Judaism. She came from a very fine Moroccan traditional family and was living in Israel, and she'd come to Miami to see a new country, try to earn some money, and she had made some real steps in her Judaism, and now this happened to her. So she said, "Please contact Rabbi Korf and tell him, Rabbi Korf, what's going on." She was in the system of prisons. There are various kinds of jails depending on the crime, and there are various holding cells where the conditions are a lot rougher than in a regular full-time cell. And they placed her first in one cell, and then they brought her to a second cell where there were 11 beds and 22 inmates. 11 bunk beds. And she describes there's lack of privacy. There's no place to be alone, and how difficult and how hard it was for her. And they wake her up in the morning at 2:30 in the morning. They do fingerprinting, and they tell her that she's going to be taken to another jail. This is just a reception center. They're going to be taking her to another jail. They take her, and she says to the nurse who she met there at the reception center, "I need kosher food." She says, "No problem, you'll have kosher food." They take her to the jail, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, they wake her up and they tell her, "Chow time." Chow time, and they serve all the prisoners breakfast. What's breakfast? Breakfast is treifa meat, non-kosher meat, and she can't imagine eating this stuff. What are they doing? Everyone's eating this at 5 o'clock in the morning. And she had just started keeping kosher, but she decided, "I'm not going to do this." She says, "The only thing that can keep me sane in this situation is my connection to God, and I'm not going to let go on the kosher." But she asked one of the wardens, "Can I please have kosher food?" "Yes. What's your number?" She tells him, "My name is Avishag Salman. What's your number?" And again, it's very humiliating. She goes from being a person to a number, and she says, "I'm sorry, I don't have any you're not on the list of getting kosher food yet, you have to first speak to the chaplain. Speak to the chaplain. There's a lot of bureaucracy in prison, and there's not every prison is really its own institution, their own rules, and people really have a very hard time. They're very alone there, and that's why Alepht's motto, the Chabad institution, the Chabad program for Jews who are incarcerated, their slogan is "No one alone, no one forgotten," because that's how it feels when you're in jail. You have no rights, and you can complain, but it's very unlikely that you'll be successful in a court against the wardens and the officers in the institution. Either way, she has no kosher food. So what she decides is she's going to drink water and have fruit, and that's it. She'll have fruit and water. And she's going on like this for days. For 3 days, all she has is her fruit and water. And one of the inmates who no one wanted to mess with was Layla Duncan. Layla Duncan had a very strong big biceps, and a big golden ring in her nose. And she says, "Hey, Simon, you're not eating. I notice you're not eating. Why aren't you eating?" She says, "I can only eat things which have a kosher symbol on them." Kosher symbol. So she goes to under her bed and she pulls out a box of crackers, which has an OU on it. It says, "Something like this?" She says, "Yeah, something like that. It's here." She knew that Layla Duncan never gave anybody anything without getting paid. She says, "I'm sorry, I have nothing to give you for that." It doesn't matter. I see you're doing this for God. I want to do this for God also. And she gives her the crackers, which really were a godsend. It revived her. Imagine 3 days, 4 days without anything except for fruit and water. Not a lot of fruit, just the fruit that was given alongside with the meal. So this is how she's going through prison. And on the 7th day of her incarceration, she is meant to go to a bail hearing. And she sees Rabbi Korf and many other members of the community in Miami would all come to support her. And the judge says that the bail is set for $250,000. A person she had never seen before, who has some kind of automobile business, he says to Rabbi Korf out loud, "I'm going to put my whole business and my house on its collateral for the bail. Doesn't matter." And she doesn't know what this is, and she looks at Rabbi Korf like, "What is that?" Rabbi Korf mouths, "Pidya and Shvuyim. The greatest charity of all is to rescue someone who's been in captivity. That's why this person doesn't know you is doing this." And he tells her, "God will help you. You're going to get out of this." But she really was in a very terrible situation, because she had no idea where this was coming from and why this was happening, because she's accused of a crime. Not only did she not commit, she didn't even know how to commit it. So at this hearing, the judge said that they can't post a bail right now. It's going to be delayed for another month. So she's all upset, and her mother calls her up. Her mother says, "Avishak, why did you do this?" "Mom, I didn't do this." Unfortunately, people in prison get a bad rep, because a lot of them make up all kinds of reasons why they're accused, why the crimes aren't true. And you don't really meet people in prison who say, "Yes, I'm wrong, it was a mistake." It's rare. So her mother was very skeptical as well. "Why are you there?" And she was thinking to herself, "Why am I here?" And it took her some time until she was able to mouth the words, "God has sent me here to do something that I don't know what it is." That's the real reason. That's what's going on. And that thought is what empowered her. She realized that all things that were going on, she had no control over anything. The only thing she could control were her thoughts. The only thing she could control was her mind. And that really gave her some strength, that she has something that she could control. And she kept that thought in her mind. And she felt, when she made that connection to God and that awareness, it suddenly illuminated everything that was going on where she was. For example, she said that the first day that she came to prison, she wanted to wash negelas. She wanted to wash her hands in the morning, but there was no washing cup. She was thinking, what do I do? Then she remembers she was at a Torah class, and people were lining up after the Torah class to ask this rabbi some questions. And one lady asked, hey, if I'm in a mall and there's no washing cup, what should I do? So the rabbi demonstrated, and with a faucet in each shoulder, you press the faucet, you turn it off, you press it again, and for each hand, you're allowed to do one pouring. So if your custom is, as a Chabad custom, to do 3 pourings on each hand, you have to open and close the faucet for each hand for all 6 times. So she said, I know what to do. I know how this mitzvah has to be done. And she decided she's going to keep the mitzvahs that she was keeping before she was incarcerated. Every day she would daven Shachris, she would daven Mincha and Ma'ariv, and she would say Chumash. And she wanted to somehow celebrate Shabbos. How should she celebrate Shabbos there in this prison? So every Thursday, she would wash her shirt in honor of Shabbos. And on Shabbos, in addition to reciting daily Chumash, she would read the whole Chumash of the week with Rashi to add some other layer of holiness. And what she noticed was that this had an effect on the other inmates. She noticed that while she was praying, the other inmates wouldn't engage in foul language and they were quieter. They just felt differently in the presence of her prayers. And she was seeing the impact and the role that she had in the prison. But then came the yontiv of Pesach. And what's she going to do? How's she going to celebrate Pesach? How's she going to get kosher food? Baruch Hashem, she was officially supposed to get kosher food. By this time, the chaplain had already put her on the list of kosher food. I think it was after 12 days of her incarceration. Finally, she was able to get kosher food. But the night of Pesach, she opens up her meal and she sees breadcrumbs on the fish. This can't be kosher for Passover, breadcrumbs. So she doesn't eat it. And all she has is 3 matzahs and water. And she realizes that these 3 matzahs are going to have to tide her over till after Passover. So she has 4 cups of water for her Seder and a minimal amount of matzah, so that she'll be able to save some for 8 days. And she just doesn't know what she's going to do. The next day, serve breakfast to all the inmates, and she tells the person serving the food that she can't have the regular food. All she can have is fruit. It's her holiday, so the lady says, I know what to do. I will give you an apple and 2 oranges, and that way you'll have something more. So that was what the lady said who was serving the food, and then she was able to give more. She was able to give a significant amount of fruit, but then the chaplain found out about it. And chaplain in prison, it's horrible, but every staff member in the prison feels very arrogant about their position. They're very like, I'm in charge. I could do this. This is my role. So the chaplain found out that because of religious reasons, this lady's having an apple and 2 oranges. How come it didn't come through his office? So he stopped it. He said, don't give her anything other extra fruit. What should she do? So she went to the chaplain. She says, listen, I need kosher food for Passover. So he said, I will look into it. But the next day, it stopped. She couldn't get the extra fruit, and she was really suffering. But miraculously, there was 21 inmates with her. Every single inmate did not eat their unpeeled fruit and gave her their fruit every day of Passover. They gave her 21 fruits for every day of Passover. So she had, Baruch Hashem, quite a lot of fruits to tide her over until the last day of Passover. And the end of Passover, all the inmates came and they clapped their hands, applauding her. Baruch Hashem, now you're able to eat food. They were all so happy for that she survived Passover. That's the impact that she made on these non-Jewish inmates. Anyways, her lawyer calls her. And the lawyer says, we have good news and we have bad news. What do you like to hear, the good news or the bad news? She says, tell me the good news first, because if I can't hear, because I need to have good news, give me some strength before you hear any bad news. So the good news is they're going to transfer you to a federal prison before your hearing in the next 3, which has been delayed and pushed off for 3 months. Well, why is it pushed off for 3 months? the lawyer says, listen, it looks like that the feds want you to accept a plea bargain, which I advise you to accept, because the alternative is they'll keep you here for 6 or 7 years, and they're asking you only to accept a plea bargain of 13 or 14 months. And by the fact that they're pushing you off, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do. They don't want to deal with your case. They realize you're not really one of the main people. They just want you to accept a plea bargain and to clarify what the role was of the senior positions of the senior officers in this company. She's like, no way, I'm not going to admit guilt of crime I didn't commit. Why would I do that? Very naive statement. Unfortunately, the right thing is to accept the plea bargain because what the lawyer was saying was true. She calls her mother. Her mother says, of course you should accept the plea bargain. You don't know what they're going to do to you. I didn't do this, Mom. I know you didn't do this, my honey, but this is what's going on. You have to accept this. And she didn't really know what she should do. And her mother says, listen, you always talk to God. You talk to God and ask God what to do. And it was true. Since she was incarcerated, she started this new practice of speaking to Hashem openly and honestly and candidly. Hashem, what should I do? She was davening. And another inmate who never speaks to her, who she wouldn't really consider confining in her either, hey, look at all spacey today, and you had a visitor. It's Friday. What's going on? She told her, she says, I'm telling you, it's no question. You have to accept the plea bargain. Anyways, she agreed to accept the plea bargain, and she was moved to a new prison. But unfortunately, her stay was very short. In this prison that was very much better conditions. She describes how happy she was when she got to the federal prison, as she was able to turn on the light and turn off the light. She had some freedom. That's how she cherished that. Wow, I'm able to turn it on and off the light. It just meant so much to her. And she had a Jewish neighbor, Rina, and she's talked about how she would wake up Rina every morning, Boker Tov, and Rina like, why is it Tov? And she had to inspire her roommate, and she felt like an identity. Anyways, they shipped her off 11 hours away to another far off prison, and she's thinking, why am I here? And she meets Rabbi Katz from the Aleph Institute before she's sent off. She says, Rabbi Katz, why is this happening? Rabbi Katz said, I guess there must be a mission for you there. And sure enough, when she gets there, Rabbi Urichman, the Rebbe's emissary to the capital of Florida, Tallahassee, manages to visit her and to talk to her. And when the chaplain saw how this rabbi was so dedicated to reach out to this one inmate and to give her books and to help her, he said to her, I think there are other Jewish inmates here, and they would all appreciate having a rabbi come here full time, come here to do services every so often. It's a great idea. And she became like this beacon of faith and trust in God, and she arranged, because she was there, that Rabbi Urchman would do these classes for all the inmates in this facility. Make a long story a little shorter. Baruch Hashem, when she came before the judge says, what, 14 months for this? People were just going to say that you go to jail and for 14 months for such a crime. This is not going to fly with me. The plea bargain is acceptable. It has to be a minimum of 20 months. So she was in prison until the following Tishrei, and in middle of Tishrei before Sukkot, she was freed, Baruch Hashem. And but she said that even though she's freed, she's always remember her time in prison and remember the connection she made with Hashem, this identity that she has. She knows wherever she goes, she's always an emissary of Hashem. And similarly, no matter what's going on in everyone's life, each of our lives, to think about how Al-Tira Avdiyaka, Hashem tells us, don't be afraid wherever you're going. You're not going by yourself. In the words of the Rebbe, in every place, in every time, in every experience, the Eibusher goes with us to fulfill the goal of creation, which is to bring the coming of Mashiach. And that's what we're up to. We're not in prison. We're with Hashem. And we're about to get out of this gullus and to see the Geulah. So meanwhile, we have to go with, as in the words of the Rebbe, Levetach Darkei, with a sense of security and joy and gladness of heart, until we see the good stuff, until we see the Bias Mashiach, Charav Mamish. that was the story I wanted to share. Good vach, David. Good vach, Beryl. Good vach, Yehuda. Good vach, Rosie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments?
Interesting story.
Oh, the sound's off. No, sound's not off.
Great story. Thank you very much.
All right. Good vach. Good vach.